This is the Moonlight Graham Show, a freewheeling conversation with the role players, the underdogs, and guys with flat-out great stories in sports.
Hello and welcome back to the Moonlight Graham Show. And our Moonlighter for today has one of the most awesome and awe-inspiring stories we have ever heard here on the podcast. His name is Chris Norton. About a month ago, I got a direct message on Twitter from a loyal listener, Chad Crable, who had asked if I had ever heard of Chris Norton or heard his story, and I hadn't, but Chad was able to connect Chris and I to get his story here on the Moonlight Graham Show, so thank you to Chad. But a little cliff notes on Chris Norton's story. Chris was from Bondurant, Iowa, and he was playing Division III college football up at Luther College. And during his freshman year in a game against Central College, Chad went in to make a tackle on a kickoff and actually had a major spinal cord injury, rendering his body almost completely motionless on the football field. And he was quickly transported up to the Mayo Clinic up in Rochester, Minnesota, where they told him that he had a 97% chance of never walking again. But through Chris's determination, through his faith, through his friends and family, and all this hard work, he was able to walk across the stage at Luther College to receive his diploma after graduating college 3 years later. It's an absolutely incredible story, and one that you probably think they should make a movie about a story like this. And a lot of people thought that same thing, because there is a documentary movie called 7 Yards that is actually out now. I watched it on Amazon Prime a couple of weeks ago when I interviewed Chris, but is actually out now today on Netflix as well. So Chris Norton is about to become a household name. He's from Bondurant, Iowa, played college football at Luther College. He is a great guy, a sports nut, and it was such a pleasure to get him here on the podcast. While I was watching the documentary 7 Yards, it probably comes as no surprise that I cried multiple times, because it is such an amazing story. It's such an amazing story about perseverance and hard work and belief and faith and you know, the power of having a great community around you as well. And Chris definitely has that. So not only am I excited to get him on the podcast and for you to hear his story here on the Moonlight Graham Show, but please go check out his documentary movie 7 Yards. Like I said, it's on everywhere across the internet now. I watched it on Amazon Prime, but it's also out today on Netflix. This is a great story, a great moonlighter, a great underdog. And if you like what we're doing here on the Moonlight Graham Show, make sure to subscribe to our podcast wherever it is that you get your podcast. And we would love it, folks, if you left us a 5-star review. You can also follow the show on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We love hearing from you guys each and every week. So enjoy today's episode with Moonlighter Chris Norton. Chris, thank you for coming on the podcast. I'm watching your documentary last night. You know, you're a college football player up at Luther College in the great city of Decorah, Iowa. You know, great town. What type of football player were you?
I was a very physical football player. I was never the biggest guy, the fastest guy, quickest guy, but I wasn't afraid of contact. And I felt like I had great instincts. So I was just kind of an instinctive player that played hard and wasn't afraid to lower the shoulder. Even with my physicality, though, I wasn't a dirty player. Like, I never got a concussion. Like, not once did I ever receive a concussion, despite lots of hard hits. Like I was saying, like, I was not afraid to shy away from some contact, even if the guy was bigger than me. I'd just go lower. But on that day, a freak accident happened.
So, yeah, you're not a big guy. What are you, 5'10", 5'11"?
Well, I think eventually I was 5'11" when I entered college, but I actually grew an inch after college. So 6 foot. And I just kind of slowly worked my way up the ranks. I was never a guy that would like shine in the drills. Like, you know, they do like a new drill. You know, I do all right, but where I shine is like live action. Like, you put me in a game situation, I just felt like I just raised my play, like, throughout the drills, whatever, just playing with my heart, my instincts, and just through practice, you kind of went from the bottom of the totem pole up towards the top, where I was playing more than any freshman on my football team.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about that. Obviously, your story all centers around Luther is playing Central College, your freshman year at Luther, you're playing special teams. And then one play, you stick your head in there, you have a spinal cord injury. This is like the injury, like a lot of people worry about the Achilles or the knee, but in the back of the heads, like the spinal injury, the head injuries are the things that are, most football players in the back of their head are scared of. What do you remember about that play?
I remember everything from that play. I can remember the play call. It was mortar kick right, which simply is like a short, high-arching kick to the right side of the field. And when the kicker called that, I was pumped because I play on the right side of the field. Like this, I'm going to get in the action. We have some momentum going. We're kind of making a comeback. Central College, they've always been a great football program.
The Dutch, man. The Dutch are good.
Yeah, they are good. And Luther's always kind of been middle of the pack. And so, we were feeling pretty good about ourselves and really wanted to keep that momentum on our side. And I felt, what a great time to shine than right now. And to stick my head in there and make a play. And so I'm sprinting downfield and I can see the opening forming where I know that ball carrier, he's going to try to run through that hole. And so I just make a diving play to take out his legs. The guy was way bigger than me. And I'm like, I just got to go low. And so when I went low and dove for his knees and his legs, just mistimed my jump. I mean, it's simple as that. I'm trying to hit him with my shoulder, but he was coming faster than I anticipated, or it was just off, just by a little bit. And my head collided with his legs. And there was nothing like a ooh or like there was no kind of like that reaction from the crowd. It looked like a football play, just a normal football play, but I'm at the bottom of the pile and I can't get up. I'm trying to push off the ground. Nothing's working. I was kind of confused, like, okay, this is weird. Maybe it's a bad stinger, like a pinched nerve. Just my body kind of just shut down a little bit. Just need to give a couple more minutes. I'll jump up, and I'm just kind of waiting there, like, let's go. I need to get off the field. Everyone's waiting for me to get up. And as time went on, that stadium went from energetic and excitement to just dead silence, and just this eerie feeling throughout the whole entire place as this horrible thing is unfolding before everybody's eyes on such a beautiful day.
So you never lost consciousness. You're laying there the whole time. At what point do you start getting like scared?
So I'm like a happy-go-lucky, like optimistic guy, where I'm like, nothing bad's gonna happen to me. So as I'm laying there, they're asking me questions. Chris, can you make a fist with your hand? I'm trying to make a fist. I can't move a thing. They're asking me, Chris, can you feel touching your leg? No. I'm fine with all of that. But it's the moment where they get the EMTs involved and they feel the need to call in for a helicopter. That's when the gravity of the situation was so much worse than I could ever predicted, because not even the local hospital was equipped to handle what was going on with me. I had no idea about spinal cord injuries or being paralyzed. Like that never crossed my mind. I never fully understood what that is or what could come from a spinal injury. So this wasn't on my radar, but I just knew it was bad. And at that moment, I just closed my eyes and just began to pray, just asking for God to let this be a big scare. Like, can this just be something that scares me out of playing football, or whatever it is? Like, God, like I'm listening. You have my attention. Like, please just don't change my life, because I felt at the time like I was living the dream. Like I had this, dreams to be a All-American football player. I'm gonna get this degree, and I'm making a ton of friends at college. I'm just loving life. I want to meet the girl of my dreams at college and go on and have a family. And I just, in that moment, I just felt like everything that I ever wanted was slipping away.
So you mentioned there praying to God early on, right after the accident, and I watched your documentary. There's a couple of moments, when you're in the MRI machine, when you're up at Mayo Clinic getting checked out, where you're also praying to God. Where does your faith come from? Like where was it in you to resort to prayer and your faith in God? Like where's that come from for you?
That came from my family. They always, talked about God and always encouraged us to have a relationship with Him. They dragged us to Sunday school and church, even though there's plenty of times where like, Mom, Dad, I just want to sleep in. But I'm so thankful that, they kind of pressed that onto us and really gave us that, belief. But it was something though, like, I believed in God, but I never depended on God ever in my life. I always felt like I was in control of things, like I would take care of things. I didn't really need to give it to God. And this was like the first time in my life where like, wow, God, I really need you. Like I really need faith and hope right now. And thankfully I had a foundation of faith and understood it enough where I could resort to that. And that's really where, for me, I really began to develop a relationship with God, and just my faith grew exponentially during my injury and after my injury, just realizing the importance of it, because up to that point, I just felt like I could take care of it.
What was the low part of that rehab? Obviously, you get to Mayo, they put you in traction. There's some really painful parts of that, but I got to imagine there's just like some dark days where you're alone in the hospital room and it gets lonely and dark.
Oh, absolutely. During the day, I had a family, I had friends, community around me. Like I just had a lot of positive influences, thankfully, that could really pour into me and distract me. But as soon as the lights went out and that room got quiet, all my fears and doubts just came pouring out. And there were countless nights where I cried myself to sleep. Like I felt so hopeless. I'm just wondering, like, am I ever going to go back to college? Am I going to live with my family the rest of my life? Will a girl ever want to be with me? Will I even make friends? Could I live a happy life when everything that's made me happy, I felt, was physical activity, was getting outdoors, exercising, hiking, playing sports, and I'm trying to like picture a life without that, without moving. And that just felt like my life was over a lot of times. And something that really helped me was about the fourth night. I'm laying there. It's about 2 a.m. I'm restless. I'm crying. And I can't even wipe the tears off my eyes. Like I had tears coming down and there's nothing I can do about it. And this physician assistant, she comes in to check my vitals. Someone's checking my vitals every 2 hours, which to make sure I'm okay. And then they leave. Well, this woman, she checks my vitals and then she does something different. She comes over my bedside. She gets down on one knee and she says, "Chris, look me in the eye." And she was kind of mean about it, honestly. And she's got this short reddish hair, glasses. She's probably in her 60s. And she's got this voice that sounds like she came straight out of a Western movie. And she says, "My name is George. I'm from Wyoming. Do you know anyone from Wyoming?" And I say, "No." I'm just thinking, like, where is this going? Like, leave me alone. And she says, "Well, people from Wyoming don't tell lies. And I want you to know you will beat this. You will beat this." And I just break down crying even more. Like, I needed to hear those words so badly. Like, her conviction and just belief just poured into me, and it restored my faith. It really did. It gave me this confidence to keep going, because I was questioning, like, is all my time and effort to get better, is it even worth it? Like, should I just quit? Like, why even keep trying when everybody else is telling me how it's only a 3% chance to ever gain any movement back below my neck, that, the idea of walking is such a pipe dream that why even bother? And, there's a lot of pessimism coming from other people that this woman, Georgia, just gave me so much life. And it just completely changed my outlook to go for it. And it just gave me that push that I needed. And, I really, too, I discovered how powerful words are. Like, we have no idea just how much influence we can make on somebody just with our words. And she really changed that for me.
What was it like when you moved your toe for the first time?
Yeah, so
because that took like what, 5 weeks? That was like 5 or 6 weeks in. Up until that point, you think I might not ever move anything below the waist ever again, and then all of a sudden your toe moves.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I wanted right from the beginning. I'm like, okay, I got to walk again. I got to get back to my old life. Like, that was the dream at the time. And so in order to do that, I got to move something in my leg. And so as I'm training and I'm working, I'm getting a little bit of arm movement, getting some sensation in my leg, but no movement in my legs. And weeks are going by. And everybody that I've talked to, that I wanted to talk to people who regain leg movement. And everybody who told me they regain leg movement, that happened around the 4th week mark or the 5th week mark. But not much has happened since after those markers. So I have like this ticking clock in my head of like, all right, we're at the 5th week mark. Like, I need to move something or this might be over for me. And I wake up one morning to this new sensation in my left big toe. And it feels like I can almost move it, but I can't move it quite yet. And I just felt like something special was happening. And I'll never forget, my dad was with me. We're super excited. We asked the doctor to come in and so we could explain like what's happening. He could tell me what's going on. Well, as I'm telling about this left big toe, I could tell right away just from his body language, he doesn't care. Like, it's not exciting for him. It's whatever to him. And so I'm like, okay, well, can you take a look at my shoe, or not look at my shoe, but look at my left big toe, take my shoe off, sock off, and like examine it. Like, do whatever you doctors do. Well, he refuses. He said, Chris, you're experiencing a phantom feeling where you want to believe that you can feel something differently, but really it's just a trick of your body and a trick of your mind. But it's not like a real sensation, like nothing's actually happening. And then he just says, Chris, you'll never move anything in your legs ever again. And then just like walks out, like whatever, like no big deal to him, but like this was everything. Like, this is my dream. And he just completely crushed me. And in that moment though, my dad tells me, he has tears coming down his face. And it's like, Chris, do not let anyone tell you what you can or cannot do. And I look back at him, tears in my eyes, and I say, you know what? I never will. And I just use that as motivation and just continue to work, continue to train. I upped my therapy hours to, I went from 3 hours, which is the max. I asked for a 4th hour. I got it. 4 hours wasn't enough, so I asked for a 5th hour. They said no again, and this time they actually meant it. I couldn't get 5 hours, but I had my therapist, write up workouts I can do on my own. And then not even a week later, after that exchange, on Thanksgiving morning of all mornings, I wiggled that left big toe, and it just was so fun. It was so exhilarating, and it was just something that started with my toe, and it grew to my legs, like my quads, my hamstrings, and eventually being able to stand and then walk with assistance.
I mean, how hard was it, like from a humility standpoint, to go from this really great athlete, right? You're a college athlete, to all of a sudden you need help doing everything. And even in therapy, there's videos of you like lifting a broom handle was really hard, and just every little thing was hard. How hard was that on your ego?
Oh, it was extremely hard. Like, my ego was crushed. My identity was lost for a while because my identity and what I valued about myself was being an athlete. Like, that's what I really cared about. I really valued my strength and my ability to, perform on the football field or the basketball court. And, I'm a competitor. Like, it could be Uno, rock, paper, scissors, like you name it. Like, I want to win. And I love that physical competition, and all of a sudden that's gone. And so, there's plenty of times like, who am I now? Like, who can I be? Like, I'm lost. But this is what I found out is like who you are as a person, like your identity comes from within, the kind of person you are and the way you make people feel and like how you serve others. Like that's what people cared about, because I thought maybe I'd lose friends, maybe girls wouldn't be interested in me. And what I found was they didn't care about that. I might have cared about being an athlete and my physical strength, but all these other people that I really valued could care less. They cared about who I was as a person. And so that's what opened my eyes of what is true identity. Like it's really who you are, not what you do. And that's what I had to figure out. But there was plenty of time. So training, I can remember one time and specifically, I'm doing arm curls. I was just able to curl my left arm to my shoulder. No way, but it was really hard. And then we strapped an ankle weight, like a half-pound ankle weight. And I can remember in the OT gym, I had my family with me watching. I'm shaking like profusely to curl this half-pound weight, and I get it. And I'm super excited. Everybody around me is like cheering. And then I think about, 2 weeks earlier, I could curl so much more weight.
Right.
Like this is pathetic. Like how pathetic that I'm cheering for a half-pound weight. Like what has my life come to? And I stole the joy that I had in that moment, that progress, by looking to the past. And it was in that moment that I realized that I had to let go of the past. Like I really have to just kind of grieve and move forward and really stay present and looking to the future, because I can't compare things to my past life. Like if I'm going to compare things to my past life, I will never move forward. I will be stuck forever because I'll always compare it to what I used to be, and it's just not healthy. And so I really had to just let go of that old self. And while I'll remember it for the great parts and always have great memories, but it's not something I hold on to as part of who I am anymore.
Man, you got some good buddies too. You mentioned it earlier, but I was shocked when, as part of your story, you end up going back to school. Like I knew you graduated, but I didn't know you actually went back to school. And like your buddies are there helping you out every step of the way, to the point where they're sleeping with you. Like you were sleeping in the same bed with these guys because you needed it. And I'm like, wow, what a great story of like male bonding and, guys taking, and like the brotherhood that you have in sports, taken off the field into real life too. That was just so cool. And you're lucky. You're lucky for that.
I do. I feel extremely fortunate, but I think if it would be like anybody else in my situation, like you just like step up. Like it could have been any one of my friends. It could have been anyone in our football team. And I think people would have reacted the same way, just because that's what you do for other people. Like you just step up to be there for them. And, it's something that, it's pretty unconventional, but I do feel that people are good people. There's a lot of good people. And especially with me being a quadriplegic, you can see my challenges. And so, I have the privilege to see the best side of people, because people want to be helpful to me. They see my struggle. They want to be kind and be there. And, I appreciate that. And, something that I always, ask other people to do is do that for everyone. Even if you can't see their struggles or challenges, like step up and be that kind of friend, that kind of person to a stranger. Because let's face it, we all have challenges. We all go through adversity. We all have things that we're dealing with that no one can see with the naked eye. So if we can really just be kind and loving to every single person, this world would be completely different. But I really saw that kindness from my friends, and I'm so lucky that they were there for me. And what also helped too is my sister actually moved to college right next door, like in an apartment, to help with that transition. So she really bridged the gap, and then my friend just took over. And As you can imagine, we got close really quick. Just like you're just in a vulnerable position where you have to ask for help and depend on them. When you have to depend on somebody, your relationship grows that much closer.
Yeah, I thought that was such a cool part of the story is the teammate side of it, and you really see, I mean, that's really, I talk to a lot of athletes on this show, and it's not so much like the games that they miss, it's like the guys and the locker room and like that sports. It's cool to see that you still had that, even though you weren't able to put the uniform on anymore. But, the next thing I wanted to ask you about, Chris, was meeting your wife online. So you meet your wife online. How long, like, after you meet virtually before you're like saying, I'm in a wheelchair, and you have to like tell your whole story, to get that out there for somebody that you want to date?
Yeah. So that was like a tricky part because, I wanted people to get to know me for who I was. And I knew it'd scare some people away, but, honestly, like thinking about it now, it's like, if that's going to scare somebody away, and then they're definitely not the right person for me. But, something that I did was I left the link to my foundation. So I already started my foundation helping people with neurological disorders. We raise funds for equipment. We also have a wheelchair camp for kids and their families. And so that was going on. And so I had that link on my profile so that if they really wanted to get to know me, they could easily figure out my whole backstory. But I didn't want to lead with a chair because I wanted them to get to know who I was. And Emily, she figured out everything about my story even before I told her, and she didn't care. Like, she was just so curious. She just wanted to know, like, where does my positive attitude come from? Like, how was it like in those first couple months in the hospital? Like, she's just like a very curious spirit and mind, and really wants to get to know the person for who they are. And that's something that really bonded me with her. I'm like, wow, okay, this girl, she seems great, but what happens if we meet in person and it's too much for her?
Right.
And so I was really nervous meeting up with her for the first time. Like, am I going to scare her away? And when we first met, she just looked me in my eyes, and she didn't care about my hands, my legs, my chair. It wasn't a big deal to her. She just cared for me, which was really special.
Yeah, it's really cool. It was just, I mean, I love everything about your story, man. And I get emotional thinking about it just because it's such a powerful message. But as I'm watching your documentary last night, they show the clip of you walking across the stage to get your diploma. And that was a big goal for you. And I guess until I saw it, I didn't really realize how big of a moment that was. Like, everybody in that gymnasium gets on their feet, starts cheering. And I'm like, oh man, I bet he was nervous for this because you had to really perform like an athlete would have had to perform there, and all the eyes were on you. How nervous were you for that moment?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever been more nervous in my life than in this moment because, like, I kind of felt like an Olympic athlete in a way because it was 4.5 years after my injury. So really, I've been training over 4 years for this one moment to walk 4 yards. And on top of that, Emily and I, we uprooted ourselves out of Iowa to go to Michigan to train for this walk. So not only did I spend thousands of hours, I uprooted us to train for it. And then the last thing I wanted was to trip and fall or to mess up or not be able to finish this goal. I told media outlets, the Des Moines Register, they ran a cover story about my goal to walk across the stage. And other news stations covered this story about this walk that's going to happen. And so I didn't want to let people down. I really wanted to encourage people to go for their dreams and to sell out and to not let anything hold them back. And so if I felt like I failed this walk, I'd be failing them. And so I put on a lot of weight on my shoulders, way more than I ever should have carried. And, my goal was to encourage everybody in that room and maybe beyond. I was disappointed, though, when it came time for the graduation walk. Not a single news outlet that's been covering me came to the graduation walk. I invited them. I wanted them there to share this story, but no one came. I was like, okay, that's disappointing. But thankfully, I had my buddy, Michael Crocker, there with a video camera, and I told him to videotape it. And that moment that he captured ended up going viral, and 300 million people end up watching it and were inspired. And I don't know if it would have done the same thing if it would have been a news outlet covering the story. So it was just, everything kind of happened, for a reason. And plus it was raining. So instead of being outside in a hot, outdoors, which would make my body weaker, it got moved indoors because of the rain. So thankfully it rained, it was indoors, a little bit more controlled temperature, but I was just blown away by the response, not only in that gym, but beyond.
Yeah, you were working out through your therapy, 4 or 5 hours a day for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, whatever it was. Are you still rehabbing and doing those type of workouts today? Do you have time for that today?
I don't. I really don't. So it was something that, for the graduation walk, I sold out. And then I took a little bit of a break, not as intense. I was still working every day, but just not as the hours I was putting in. And then eventually the walk, the 7-yard wedding walk.
Yeah, for the wedding.
Came up. And so then I picked it back up to train for my wedding walk. But, after we were able to, successfully do the 7-yard wedding walk, my family grew exponentially by, we went from no kids to 5 kids really quick, from foster care to adoption. We have 7 kids right now, actually. So with 7 kids, I'm a full-time motivational keynote speaker, author. We had this, now the film is out and doing a bunch of stuff for that. I don't have time to do the same training that I was before. I still try to get some exercise in with just doing some walks around the house with a buddy of mine. But it's not nearly the training. And really what I found, I'm content with where I'm at. I know how hard I work. I've given everything that I've got, and it's got me this far. And I knew I had so much more to go. And I don't know if it would ever actually happen to walk independently, but I just know my life isn't measured by the steps that I take. It's about the difference I can make and how I can serve others. So, I'm pouring myself now into my family, my speaking business, my foundation, the Chris Norton Foundation. So those things have taken over my heart, and I'm really pursuing those with passion.
I love it. Well, Chris, the way we end every episode of the Moonlight Graham Show is with the 5 big questions. All right. So first question is, who was your favorite athlete growing up?
It would be LeBron James.
LeBron?
I've always watched LeBron.
I'm an MJ guy.
Are you?
Yeah.
I loved MJ, and then LeBron came on the scene. I remember getting his jersey for Christmas as like a 4th grader when he came into the league, and I was just in love with everything. And now even today with his charitable work, I really admire the guy, especially being such a star at such a young age and how he's handled it.
Second question is what was the highlight of your athletic career? Outside of the 7-yard walk and the 4-yard walk to get your diploma, but back when you were playing, right? What was the highlight?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say one of my highlights would be, for our football program at Bonneret Farrar, we've been historically bad for a long time, but my class, we were the first class to go to the playoffs. We went to playoffs my junior and senior year, so that was pretty proud moments for us. And then just winning a district title or my senior year, and I had the game-clinching interception against the 3rd-ranked team in the state to win the district my senior year. So I'd probably be my pinnacle of my highlight of my high school career.
I like that. So are you still a sports fan now, or is it become hard for you to watch sports after, your injury?
I'm a sports junkie, man. I love college football, NFL, college basketball. March Madness is starting as we are recording this, which I'm super pumped about. But I still love the game. Football, I'm not in love with the hard hits anymore. Like, it makes me cringe, and I feel anxious when I see somebody take a hard hit or lower their head, because I know the gravity of the situation. So that scares me, but I still love the game. I like how they're making changes to make it safer. I still enjoy the game regardless of, without the crackback blocks, without the huge, blindside hits and things like that. I think those plays can go. While I enjoyed those as a player, now knowing like what I know now, it's just not good for the game to injure players. Like, it's more fun when you have the best players in the field that are safe and healthy.
So you've jumped in headfirst to being a father. You're still a young guy. You already have 7 kids. So what have you learned most about being a dad?
Being a dad. Well, I feel like you're learning all the time. Like,
yeah,
there's never a moment where you're not learning something. But, something that I've had to really wrestle with and come to terms with is, I've always dreamed about being the dad like my dad was to me. And my dad was really active. He was in the pool with me. He taught me how to throw a ball, swing a bat, shoot a shot, throw a football, like all those like kind of dad things, fishing. And those are things that, I can try to verbalize with my kids, but it's something that I can't really show them. I can't really participate as much as I've always dreamed about and wanted. And so something that I've learned is just focusing on being a dad that I can be, and understanding that, being a loving, present dad is the most important dad that you can be over the physical interaction. While both would be great, I just know that what they need more than that active dad is somebody who really loves them and makes them feel special and seen and cared for. So that's what I really learned about, being that kind of dad.
I love it. Final question then, Chris, is what's the best advice you've ever received?
Something that jumps out at my mind is the advice my dad gave me as a kid. It actually came after a basketball tournament when I performed like really poorly. I was really disappointed with myself. I'm pouting. I'm feeling sorry for myself. I'm on the couch watching TV, just trying to like distract myself from like my anger, my frustration. And my dad, he kind of came up to me. He's like, Chris, if you don't like where you're at, then do something about it. If you don't like where you're at, do something about it. And it's like, you're right. Like, I'm not going to change the outcome by sitting on the couch. Like, if I want to get better, then I have to make it happen. Like, it's up to me. And so what he instilled in me, and really my mom too, is just being radically responsible for your life. And so that advice has carried me to this moment now. And it's just always taking accountability and responsibility over my choices and my actions and my success and my failures. And so it's helped me become resilient, because if you want to get through something hard and challenging, you have to take responsibility for your life. You can't give it to somebody else. It's in your hands. You can't feel sorry for yourself. You can't change the circumstances, but you can change how you move forward and how you respond. And that's something that I just hold near and dear to my heart.
I love that. Well, Chris, I really appreciate you taking the time for the Moonlight Graham Show today. Before we wrap up, like, how can people find, your book, the movie? We're going to be releasing this, I think, the same day it's coming out on Netflix. So that'll be a lot easier for people to view your movie. But
yeah.
Foundation, tell us how we can find all that stuff.
Go to chrisnorton.org. That's where you're going to find the book, The 7 Longest Yards, the film, 7 Yards, which, when this comes out, it's on Netflix. So watch it on Netflix. You can run it on Apple TV, Amazon Prime. But that's a great spot to also, if you want to hire me for speaking. But Foundation. And then my Instagram is Chris A. Norton 16. I'm pretty active on there, and Facebook.
Cool. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time, man. It's always good to connect with a fellow Iowan. And, just great work on everything that you've accomplished so far, being a great dad, overcoming so many obstacles, and being an inspiration to so many people. So thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me on.
Hey guys, thanks once again to listening to today's episode of the Moonlight Graham Show. And even though I do most of the interviews here on the podcast, there is a ton of work that happens behind the scenes that you guys don't see that make each episode possible. So I got to give a shout out to the Moonlight Graham Show team. First of all, Brian Sandvig, our producer. Brian does all of the post-production work, and in real life, he's not just a podcast producer, he's also a real estate agent. So if you're looking to buy or sell a home down in the Kansas or Missouri areas, give Brian Sandvig a call. Next guy on that list is Brendan Gargano. Brendan does all of our design and artwork here on the podcast. He's one of the most talented artists I've ever met, and I love all of his work. If you need any help on the design side with logos or anything like that, give Brendan Gargano a call. The next guy on that list is Andy Flattery, my older brother. Andy, of course, has done some of the interviews here on the podcast. He also is a certified financial planner. He owns a business called Simple Wealth Planning. If you need any help in that area, check Andy Flattery out. And then, of course, the trusty co-host Tom Griffin and my younger brother Neil Flattery. Those guys are just busy being husbands, being fathers, they're family men, but also they do a ton of work here on the show. So thanks again for listening. We really appreciate you guys subscribing and supporting the Moonlight Graham Show.